And this section of the Nectar of Devotion is entitled Ecstatic Love. This is chapter 17. By the process of executing regulated devotional service, one is actually elevated onto the transcendental stage, beyond the material modes of nature. At that time, one's heart becomes illuminated like the sun. The sun is far above the planetary systems, and there is no possibility of its being covered by any kind of cloud. Similarly, when a devotee is purified like the sun from his pure heart, there's a diffusion of ecstatic love, which is more glorious than the sunshine. Only at that time is the attachment to Krishna perfect. Spontaneously, the devotee becomes eager to serve the Lord in his ecstatic love. At this stage, the devotee is on the platform of Uttama Adhikari, perfect devotion. Such a devotee has no agitation from material affections and is interested only in the service of Radha and Krishna. Jai. Thank you. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, chapter entitled, is it Qualities of a Perfect Person? The behavior of a perfect person. So the behavior is more important. How the person acts. Actions speak louder than words. And we're on text 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So 7th canto, chapter 13, the behavior of a perfect person. And this is a interaction between Prahlad Maharaj, the son of Hiranyakashipu, and a devotee who is behaving like a python. He's lying there on the ground, and whatever food comes his way, he eats that. So, Yajya Narayano Devo, Yajya Narayano Devo, Bhagavan Hrid Gita Sada, Bhagavan Hrid Gita Sada, Bhaksha Kevalaya Jnanam, Bhaksha Kevalaya Jnanam, Dunoti Dvantam Akavat, Dunoti Dvantam Akavat, Yashanarano Devo, Bhagavan Vidgata Sada, Bhaksha Kevalaya Jnanam, Dunoti Dvantam Akavat, Yasha Narayana Devo, Shishikali Nitai Mahaprabhu Shashiki Jai. Bhagavan Vidgata Sada, Bhaksha Kevalaya Jnanam, Dunoti Dvantam Akavat, Yajanarayana Devo, Bhagavan Vidgata Sada, Bhaksha Kevalaya Jnanam, Dunoti Dvantam Akavat, Yashanarayana Devo, Bhagavan Vidgata Sada, Bhakti Kevalaya Jnanam Dunoti Dvantama Yaja, of whom? Narayana Deva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, Bhagavan, the Lord, Vidgata, in the core of the heart, Sada, always, Bhakcha, by devotional service, Kevalaya, alone, Agyanam, ignorance, Dunoti, cleans, Dvantam, darkness, Alkavat, as the sun. Translation. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full of all opulences, is predominant within the core of your heart because of your being a pure devotee. He always drives away all the darkness of ignorance, as the sun drives away the darkness of the universe. Responsibly, please. Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full of all opulences, is predominant within the core of your heart because of your being a pure devotee. He always drives away all the darkness of ignorance, as the sun drives away the darkness of the universe. Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The words Bhakti Kevalya indicate that simply by executing devotional service, one can become full of all knowledge. Krishna is the master of all knowledge. Aishvaryasya, Samagrasya, Virasya, Yashyasa, Shriya. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart. Ishvara Savabhutana, Videshi Arjuna Tishtati. And when the Lord is pleased with the devotee, the Lord instructs him. Only to the devotees, however, does the Lord give instructions by which to advance further and further in devotional service. To others, the non-devotees, the Lord gives instructions according to the manner of their surrender. The pure devotee is described by the words Bhakti Kevalya. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explains that Bhakti Kevalya means Jnana Kamanja Amishraya, unmixed with the fruit of activities or speculative knowledge. Simply surrendering at the lotus feet is the cause of all a devotee's enlightenment and awareness. Om Jnanatimiranda Shaginandina Shalakaya Chaksharan Manitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchikapatrubhischa kripat sindhubhirvacha paditanam bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So, there's another verse similar to this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna Surya Sama, Maya Haya Andhakara, Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Maya Adhikara. Wherever there is Krishna, there is no Maya. Just as when there is sun, there is no darkness. So, Narada Muni, Prahlad Maharaj, he's asking the sage how he's quite plump, because he just lies there as a python. You'd expect him to be quite thin if he only gets food that comes his way. And at the same time, he's also complimenting him that he can see that he's a fully Krishna conscious person from the effulgence of his face, and that he's aware of, absorbed in thought of the Lord all the time. So Prahlad Maharaj, being a great devotee himself, he can detect another great devotee. If a person is conditioned, Hare Krishna, by the material energy, then his ability to perceive another's greatness is diminished. So you'll generally find, if in a community of devotees, the ones that complain the most about other devotees are the ones with the least amount of Krishna consciousness. And then as they become elevated, then they're able to appreciate devotees more. And if Prahlad Maharaj hadn't have been an Uttama Adhikari, if he'd have been a Kanishta, then he may have criticized the devotee that you're just very lazy, you just lie around imitating the python, and you're overeating. And in so many ways, he could have been critical of this devotee. But Prahlad Maharaj, he could see that the devotee was very elevated, and therefore he was asking him so that this devotee could speak, and then he would hear. He would become more aware of the devotee's awareness and appreciation, and his. So this is actually the way that we, if we want to find out how advanced the devotee is, then we sit down and we ask him about Krishna, and how well he's able to answer gives us an indication of how elevated the devotee is. Not by how thin he is, or how fat he is, or any externals, but by inquiring Guyam Akiti Prichiti about those confidential subjects. And then if the devotee is inclined, he may open up and reveal his appreciation and relationship with Krishna. So Bhakti Kaivalya is, it means executing devotional service. By executing devotional service, one becomes full of all knowledge. So in the Shikshastakam prayers by Lord Chaitanya, he says, Chaitadapana Majanam, Bhava Mahagni Devapanam, Shekareva Chandrika Vitranam, Viju Vaju Jivanam. He says that this holy name is it is the life, Viju Vadu Jivanam, Jivanam life, Vaju wife of all transcendental knowledge. So in Kali Yuga, we get our knowledge, our awareness of Krishna, our appreciation of Krishna through chanting his holy names. In this particular age that Prahlad Maharaj is meeting this devotee, this devotee that's imitating a python, he's achieved perfection by just completely being absorbed and depending on the Lord. But in Kali Yuga, that's a difficult process to follow. So it's recommended in Kali Yuga, Harinama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva Nasteva Gatiya Anyata. The only way is to chant the holy name, chant the holy name, chant the holy name. So Bhakti Kaivalya means the devotee is full of knowledge because he's connected to Krishna, who's the source and master of all knowledge. He's situated in everyone's heart. So the Lord, he reciprocates with devotees according to how advanced they are. And for a devotee that is advanced in devotional service, Krishna reciprocates by giving him further advancement in devotional service. Because the nature of being advanced is that we become more and more greedy for more advancement. It's like sitting down to eat a meal, and the more you eat, the hungrier that you get, the more you want. So Krishna is like that as well. And Arjuna says that in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, I'm never satiated by hearing the wonderful things that you're speaking. Please speak more. Although I'm hearing it, I'm becoming more eager to hear even more. And Maharaj Parikshit was the same for 7 days and nights without eating or sleeping. He was hearing and he was wanting to hear more and more and more. So this is a symptom of somebody that's actually got a taste in Krishna consciousness, that they're no longer affected by the body, by the desires and urges of the body. They transcend sleep and the urge to taste with the tongue, palatable food dishes. So this is a symptom of one that's become absorbed, that he becomes disinterested in sense gratification, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Prabhupada said, toward the end of his life, he said, now I am liberated, I don't sleep, I don't eat, there's no question of mating, and I'm not defending, so therefore I'm completely liberated. And there's the famous verse, Anukulyena Krishnano Shilanam Bhakti Uttama. How does the first part of that go? Do you know that verse? It's saying, if you render devotional service favorably, without any desire for karma or jnana, Anukulyena Krishnano Shilanam Bhakti Uttama, that's the highest Uttama. Jnana Kamana Avritam. That's Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion. He's setting the gold standard, what devotional service is, what pure devotional service is, and where are the impurities that we have to become free from. All jnana and all karma. Karma, fruit of activity. Jnana, the desire for a carefree life, to just merge into the oneness and have no responsibilities and just float around in eternal bliss. So this is jnanam, this is the contamination. The jnani is more elevated than the karmi because he realizes, okay, fruitive activities bind you and they cause distress. Therefore, let me become aloof, let me renounce everything. And then they try to attain the state, Brahman realization, where they're just floating around in the Brahmanda without any anxieties. Any questions or comments? Where are you from? And you're staying in Glasgow for a few weeks, or? Oh. You're just staying here for a few days? Oh, okay. Sure. So you go to the temple in Mayfield Road? In Manchester, they have a temple in Whalley Range, in Mayfield Road. Do you go along to that temple? Oh, I see. So that's the one you frequent. Okay. Okay. And you're initiated? Jai. Oh, very nice. Jai. Well, my wife shares quotes from Radhanath Maharaj. She shared a quote yesterday. Maya's job is to sort out the sincere from the insincere. Good one. Are you also a disciple? Oh, okay. He's dragging you along. How long do you aspire for before Radhanath Maharaj recognizes you? Okay. There's a devotee here, Nivedita, Dr. Nivedita, and she's aspiring for Shiva Ramaraj. So Shiva Ramaraj says, I want you to do book distribution. So she's been going out regular doing book distribution. So Shiva Ramaraj is accepted now here as an aspiring disciple. So it's just a question of when she gets initiated. But that's where he wants to see now. He wants to see the devotees prove themselves by doing some book distribution for a year or two at least. And then that is a good preparation for initiation. Creates a good training, clears away a lot of pride and arrogance. Approaching people can be quite humbling. And once that's there, that can be a bedrock for all the other devotional activities that take place. It's very, very purifying, approaching people. And we have Rainis, he's from Latvia. He's been, how long have you been here now? 6 weeks? 6 months? 10 months? 10 months? 5 months. He's been here 5 months. And he's out doing Sankirtan book distribution regular. So he's getting the rapid advancement program. And when yeah. Yet, Srila Prabhupada said also, if you do book distribution in Scotland, you make twice the advancement because the weather is so bad. So it's like being here for 10 months so far. But one of the good things that every situation has its advantages and disadvantages. So we have some disadvantages here in Scotland. The weather, people are not so culturally aware or see the importance of practicing Krishna consciousness. But because there's so few devotees, then we all learn so many things. We learn how to do arti. We learn how to say the Pramadwani prayers. We learn all the songs that we're singing. We learn to give class. We learn to cook. We learn to clean. So many things. Whereas in the big temple, you'll generally find there's just a handful of devotees that always lead and they're the ones, and no one else is ever going to get a chance. You can go to that temple for 50 years and you'll never get a chance to leave the kirtan once. You won't play Madanga, you won't learn to play the cartels, and you won't really know the Premadwani prayers, and so many other little things. Srila Prabhupada wanted us all to be like gurus, that if we were suddenly just taken out of that temple and dropped off somewhere, we would immediately know how to do all the different aspects of Krishna consciousness, and then we could bring people in, train them, set up a center, and then go in and do the same thing. And Rupa Goswami is asking us also, Vacha Vegam, Manasikroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Niropasta Vegam, Eitan Vegan, Yopishahitadira, Savmakam, Pativim Shishat. He says, go and get shishas, go and take disciples all over the world. Once you've learned to control your tongue, your belly and genitals, your mind, your actions of anger, then you're qualified. Go and make disciples all over the world. So this is, and it was Rupa Goswami who told Srila Prabhupada in 1965, he appeared before him, and he said, now's the time. Go to the West now. So Srila Prabhupada, he was on the boat very soon after that. Rupa Goswami personally appeared to him. So Sri Chaitanya Manobhastam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale, where Rupanug is Rupa Goswami, and he wants us to go and make disciples all over the world. That's his very first instruction. He's pushing Prabhupada, come over now, set up. So part of a whole big strategy. Rupa Goswami knew 500 years ago when he was with Lord Chaitanya what would be happening in the future, that Srila Prabhupada would come, he would translate the books would be distributed, temples would be set up, all this. He already knew that was going to happen beforehand, you know. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's amazing if you get that. There's a little player with all Prabhupada's lectures on. So you go through everything he said or sang. It's on a little player. If you take the little chip out, it's all within 128 gigabytes of information, you know. But when you're listening, in the beginning, Prabhupada is really, he's at Dr. Mishra's yoga studio, and this lady's asking all kinds of silly questions, and she's not really listening, and she's really proud. Prabhupada is just so intensely trying to explain to her. And it must have seemed hopeless, you know, what he wanted to do and what was actually happening. But he had so much faith, he just pushed on, and eventually it all happened. And so perhaps part of the reason for that was that in the future, when we hear those lectures, we'll realize, wow, Prabhupada must have been so determined, he must have had so much faith that this was all going to happen. So don't become discouraged by what may seem like a lack of success. Krishna doesn't say in this result there is no diminution or loss. He says in this endeavor. And the endeavor we can always make. Sometimes when there's less facility, you have to make more endeavor. So in that sense, you're being more successful because you're being forced to push harder, you know, to do more, to surrender more. Whereas if you're in a bigger temple and everything's kind of happening already, then you're just getting carried along. I read an interesting thing this morning, actually. It was very interesting. This is a real point of discussion. So Chaitanya Charan, he's done a book called Bhagavad Gita Reflections on the Bhagavad Gita. So toward the end, he's going through all the verses, and toward the end, now Krishna's finishing. And he's really showing how much he loves the living entities, not just Arjuna, but in fact he loves everybody as his part and parcel. And he's saying, take this knowledge and go and distribute it to others, and if you do it, you'll be very dear to me. So Chaitanya Charani compares that to someone throwing a rope down, and you grab the rope, and then you pull yourself up, you know. But then also, he says, just try to study this sacred conversation, and if you do that, that'll be enough. So that's like getting a rope thrown down to you, and you're not strong enough to pull yourself up, but you just hold the rope, and Krishna will pull you up. And then finally he says, and if you can't study it, at least just hear it. Just hear it. And that's compared to the rope comes down, and the rope's got a seat on it, and all you have to do is sit on the seat, and Krishna will drag you up. So Chaitanya Charan was saying, Krishna is bending over backwards. And I was thinking, well, that seems unfair that someone's got to work really hard and somebody else, the person that's climbing up, could think, oh, I'm just going to wait for the seat to come down and I'll just, go on Facebook on my phone as I'm getting dragged up, But for Krishna, he knows the situation of every living entity, and he knows for some living entities, they're not going to be strong enough to climb up on the rope, and for them, they'll need the seat. They'll just need to hear, and that'll be enough. Because Krishna knows the heart of every living entity, and he knows what everyone is capable of, we have to try and find out ourselves, what am I? Am I one that's supposed to just hear the Gita? Am I supposed to study it? Or am I supposed to go and share it with others? We have to work out what it is that I'm capable of and what it is that Krishna wants from me. And if Krishna only wants us to hear it, then we have to be satisfied, well, that's pretty much all I can do. And there are some devotees that are like that. They will just come along and they will read the books and they will hear and they will maybe not study it so seriously, but they'll have some faith, and that's the level that they're on, and Krishna accepts them for that. But it's not that that's one of the devotees that could have been spreading Krishna consciousness, and now he's just wanting to be lazy. Krishna knows, no, you could do so much more. So you may be thinking, oh, well, that's enough. I'm just hearing the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna's God, Hari Bol. And Krishna's like, no, that's not enough. You've got to work out, well, what is it Krishna wants? What does he want me to do? Does he want me to become a guru? At least a Shiksha guru, and go and spread this message? Am I strong enough? Have I understood it enough to be able to convince other people? Is that what Krishna wants me to do? So definitely if we're initiated, then obviously Krishna's got some special plan for us. And then if he sends along a pure devotee like Radhanath Maharaj, then we should understand, okay, so Krishna's obviously got a special arrangement for me, because how many people have got initiation from Radhanath Maharaj that have been accepted like that? So then we realize, well, okay, I'm in a very special situation. Krishna's been very kind to me, and he has big plans for what he wants me to do. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's funny when I go to Mayapur, because there wouldn't, if I didn't turn up today, there wouldn't be class. There wouldn't have been Guru Puja. There wouldn't have been. So I have to. But when I'm in Mayapur, there's so many devotees there. I start thinking, well, I don't really need to be here because it's going to go on anyway. And then I end up going out and having a Mahal pizza, and so many of the distractions come in. So when I come back in, I realize, oh, Krishna's put me here, because if I was in a big temple, I would just be letting everybody else do all the work, Yeah. 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 I couldn't believe it. I was at Krishna Balaram temple a few years ago in Vrindavan, and I was going to try and pay my obeisances, but there wasn't enough of the floor to be able to tuck your head down. And then I wanted to go towards the deity, and this Indian Mataji pushed in front of me and kind of banged me with her elbow, knocked me off the way. And I was thinking, the whole situation is quite hostile and aggressive, actually. And I just like to come in and have a peaceful time with the deities and say a few prayers and then go back out, And here you've got to fight, like the battle of Kurukshetra, to get near the deities in the first place, So I do prefer it. I like to go from time to time, but when I do go to the Dham, I like to go when there's not a festival period, when it's just quiet and you can just wander around, Ekachakra used to be really peaceful to just wander around. It's getting more and more busy now. So that's the downside of becoming successful when you preach, that so many people come along, And even though Chaitanya, his mission was to deliver the entire universe, but there were times when it was just too many people, and he would just sneak off to Alalanath or somewhere like that, just to have some quality time and peace and just chant. If we're struggling more and we're endeavoring more, then we're making more advancement, because that's how we make the advancement, by making the endeavor. So when it is difficult and you have to really push yourself, then that's when you're really making advancement. Otherwise, you can be getting carried along with everybody else and not really making much of an effort yourself. You're just kind of getting washed along with everybody. And there's different types of destinations as well. Some devotees, they're just going to Vaikuntha. They've taken prasadam, they've seen the deities, and they have some kind of basic idea. And so that takes them to Vaikuntha. But to go to Goloka and to go into the more confidential relationships with Krishna, then that takes endeavor. Krishna wants to see, do you really want me? Or do you just want to be an average devotee? And Srila Prabhupada, actually, in one of his letters to a disciple, he said, the secret of Krishna consciousness is to recognize that Krishna has put me in this situation, and it is special mercy that he's put me in this situation, in this location, with this group of devotees, with this group of non-devotees to preach to. So Krishna consciousness means seeing, maybe not seeing Krishna's face all the time, but seeing Krishna's hand all the time. And Krishna's made this arrangement. Krishna's put me here. Krishna sent this person along. Krishna's made this situation for me to surrender in this way or that way. That's Krishna consciousness, seeing his hand. Later on, Krishna may reveal his face, and he may even embrace us. But we shouldn't try to be embracing and seeing Krishna directly in the beginning. We should be becoming purified, qualified. See his hand first, and once you've seen his hand, you can see his arm, and then his shoulder, and then his neck, and then his face. Okay, start with his feet, actually. See his feet first, then see his hand. Yeah. Any questions or comments? Shishikona Dharma Pachachiki. There's a book by Sheshika Prabhu that I just got called The Four Questions. And he says the most powerful punctuation mark out of exclamations, commas, semi-commas, all the other different ones, is the question mark. He says the question mark is like a hook. So to ask a question, if you have a question, it means you can get dragged onto some higher level of Krishna consciousness. So the challenge is always, how can I find, until I'm fully realized, then it means there must be things that I need to hear. So how can I formulate the right question? Perfect questions, perfect answers. We only get the perfect answer if we can find the perfect question. There's so much now on the internet, there's so many answers coming, but nobody's thinking, well, what is the actual question? Everyone, it's just flooding us with answers. This happened, that happened, this is a conspiracy, this is a this and that. So much information is coming, but we have to step back and say, okay, well, what's the question, first of all? What's the proper question? Do I want to know how the government's corrupt? Do I want to know that they didn't go to the moon? Do I want to know that they didn't, the Twin Towers didn't fall down because of a plane? Do I really want to know all these answers in the first place? What do I really want to know? I want to know how to get the material world. I want to know how to stop identifying with the body. I want to know how to associate better with devotees, chant the holy name better, go deeper in my Krishna consciousness. These are the questions. And then we have those questions established, then we can go looking for the right answers. The mood of Lord Chaitanya is magnanimity and pure mercy. And Radha Krishna, Srila Prabhupada said we can only approach Radha Krishna really when we're Raganuga Bhakta, when we're on the spontaneous platform. So he said instead approach Lakshmi Narayan, approach them with awe and reverence. You see, before you can give up awe and reverence, you have to have it. So first of all, you follow all the Vaidhi, all the rules and regulations. You're very, very careful, very regulated, very clean. Lakshmi Narayan. And then, once we're free of all our anarthas and we've got some ruchi, then Raganuga Bhakti starts to come, and then we can approach Radha and Krishna. So in Kali Yuga, Gaurnitai are the personalities that we approach because they are the most recent incarnations, and therefore they're the most relevant. And then by the shelter and the mercy of Gaurnitai, then they will reveal the path to Radha and Krishna. But if we think, well, I think I'll just go directly to Radha and Krishna. And also, before we chant Hare Krishna, we chant the Panchatattva mantra. So first of all, we want to get the mercy. And when we're qualified, then we'll get access to serving Radha and Krishna. And then we'll actually get access to chanting properly, because the chanting is approaching Radha and Krishna. Krishna Balaram, yeah. And that's why if you have Radha and Krishna on the altar, like in the temple in Hungary, they have Radha Shyamasundar, and they only have Gauranga just on his own on the altar. Because if Lord Nityananda's there, he's the elder brother, then it kind of infringes upon that intimacy. Radharani feels a little bit kind of like intimidated by Balaram being there. She can't be so intimate with Krishna. But if it's just Lord Chaitanya, and we see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya, he doesn't want to be Radharani, he wants to serve Radharani, he wants to be a maid servant. So when he goes into the Radha Krishna Leela, he's picking flowers and he's trying to assist Srimati Radharani. He isn't saying, hey, hold on a minute, I'm actually the real Radharani, you move out the way, where's Krishna? He just wants to serve, he wants to assist. So that's the mood that we're servants of the gopis, Gopi Bhatta Kamala. We're not sannyasis, we're not vanaprasthas, we're not vaishyas, we're not brahmins or kshatriyas. We are servants of the servants of the servants of the gopis. That's what we're aspiring for. That's what Lord Chaitanya wants us to do, even. That's what he's offering us. And then when you are in that, fixed in that service, then you'll get access to the association of the gopis, and then Radha and Krishna, and then everything will be revealed, you know. Where if you think, no, skip all the servants in between, I'm just going to go directly to Radha and Krishna, then you'll be disqualified. And there was one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, Rameshwar Prabhu, and he was saying in class that when the devotee goes out and he tries to approach somebody to give them a book, he is like a gopi, trying to bring people into the rasa dance. So the devotees, they weren't sure, and they asked Srila Prabhupada, is this true? And Prabhupada said, yes, this is actually. So Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement is to involve us in sharing the holy name with others, bringing them in to this rasa dance of Radha and Krishna. And by going out and trying to involve other people, then we become like little gopis. And of all the things you can offer Radha and Krishna, to offer a soul, a fallen soul, back up into the spiritual world, that is the greatest, most pleasing offering. It's like taking a flower, picking the flower and offering the flower back. It's the most fragrant, the most pleasing for Krishna, is to see a fallen, forgotten soul reconnected and brought back to this relationship with Radha and Krishna. So we get a chance to do that by engaging in the Sankirtan movement. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what's interesting here is because of people's ignorance, whatever chanting they do is namabas. And because of people's knowledge in India, whatever they do is namaparad. Because they should know better. They should know that the cow shouldn't be killed. Yeah. And over here it's just namabas. You know, the guy, we had these butchers around the barras. There's a place in Glasgow called the Barras, and it's where all these stalls are. And there was one stall, and it had there was about 6 or 7 butchers all on the line, and they had their meat cleavers. And every Sunday we would do Harinam in Glasgow, and we'd go around the Barras. And every time we went past the stall, all the butchers would be like this, Garanga, Garanga, Garanga. And they had like, you know, meat, blood dripping off the meat cleavers, and they're like, Garanga, Garanga. And although they're so sinful, their chanting is namabas because they don't know anything better. Whereas if they were, you know, caste Brahmins, and they're using the deity to get donations, and they're keeping a few ladies apart from their wife, and they're smoking beedies and all kinds of things, so much namaparad there, you know, they should know so much better. But the butchers are just like, Hare Krishna. And they don't know why, but they're feeling so happy. They're like, the thing is really funny because, you know, they're actually getting intoxicated on chanting the holy names, and they're like really experiencing bliss, you know. And they don't realize what it is. It's because they're coming in contact with the holy name and they're being relieved of millions of pap. And so they're feeling really refreshed, you know, but they don't know what's going on. They just suddenly feel really happy. So their disqualification becomes their qualification. And in India, their qualification becomes their disqualification. So it works against them, you know. And it's harder. And that's why Srila Prabhupada found it was so much more successful, because they didn't know anything. So if he said Krishna's God, they weren't going to say, oh, you sure it's not Ganesh or Shiva? Because they didn't even know anything else. It was just either nothing or Krishna. So it was very easy. Whereas in India, my friend was over in India, and on the altar in one of this Hindu's house, on the altar was a picture of Krishna, Jesus Christ, Buddha, Sai Baba, and Superman. They put Superman on. So the devotee said, "How come you got Superman?" And they said, "Well, he's blue and he wears a cape, so you know we'll just be on the safe side. We'll worship everybody." But they say everyone's friend is nobody's friend. So if you try and serve everybody as God, then you serve nobody as God, because the whole point is God is just singular, and He wants that exclusive devotion to Him. So if you start worshipping Him and somebody else, then it becomes an insult, you know. You've got Krishna on the altar and some fictitious character called Superman who doesn't even exist, and you're going to bow down and offer, then the whole thing becomes ludicrous. And then for preaching, you know, serious, intelligent people, when they see that, they realize, oh, this is just all old wives' tales and mythology, and they just do all these things, but they don't really know why they do it, you know. And that could put people off if you don't understand the philosophy, and you go to a Hindu temple and you see them doing all these things. And one time, Srila Prabhupada, oh no, actually it was the devotees in the early days that they'd been trained by Prabhupada, and then they were sent across to India, and they went to one temple, and the pujari came out and he started smoking, and he said, "Do you like the deities?" And the devotees were saying, "Yeah." And he says, "That one reminds me of Bilko." And Bilko is like some comedian, you know, in America. So he doesn't even believe, he's just doing the puja because he gets some donation for it, you know. So the devotees were like, "What's this?" You know, and they went back to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, "Oh yeah, he is just a caste Brahmin, a smarta Brahmin. They have the deities, but it's just there for livelihood. They have no understanding, no faith." And then other people would get put off them because they're thinking, well, if the head pujari doesn't believe that that's Krishna, then maybe it isn't Krishna. Surely he would know. If he is serving him all the time, he would know, you know. You know the story of the devotee that was serving the deity, and the deity wouldn't answer his benedictions. So after a few years, the devotee said, "Okay, I'm not going to serve you any longer because you don't reciprocate, and I'm going to put beeswax up your nose, so that when I light incense, you can't smell it." So that night, the deity came to him in a dream, and he said, "Okay, what is it you want? What's the benediction that you want?" And the devotee said, "I've been worshipping you for years, and yesterday I was so offensive to you, and now you're asking me what I want. Why is that?" So Krishna said, "Well, for many years you worshipped me, but yesterday was the first time that you treated me like a person." So all the rituals and all the slokas and all the different procedures that they follow, the real thing is, do you appreciate that deity is Krishna, that deity is a person, you know? One time Srila Prabhupada, he went into a temple in India and he called the pujari over and he said, there's a speck of tilak in the deity's eyes. And the pujari said, "Oh, okay." And he went over and he came back and he said to Prabhupada, "No, I think you're mistaken." And Srila Prabhupada said, "No, there's a speck of tilak in the deity's eyes." So the pujari went really close. And there it was, a speck of tilak in the corner of the deity's eyes, and he brushed it away. There's no way that Srila Prabhupada would have seen it from where he was. Even the pujari couldn't see it at first. So that indicates that actually the deities are alive, and if there's a pure devotee there, the deities would just speak and say, "Can you ask the pujari to get this tilak out my eye? It's disturbing me, you know." So the deities have got feelings, they're alive. You know, the temple should be warm, should be clean. The prasadam, the bhoga should be offered on time. Everything should be done nicely because they're there, they're standing there, you know. But we can't appreciate that until we're fully purified. So we have to follow everything very carefully until the day when we can actually see, "Oh wow, the deities are alive. They're there. They're watching me. They're making all the arrangements." Well, it's interesting. In Soho Street in London, there's a temple, and they have a gathering in another building called Studio 108. And the rule is in Studio 108, nobody says God, nobody says Krishna, nobody bows down, nobody's wearing tilak, everyone's just casual clothes. And the temple president was telling me that after a few months of the people coming along, they get inquisitive and they start them chanting. He said, then once they start chanting Hare Krishna, then they can go before the deities and they can bow down and they can hear about God and they can hear about how we should follow authority, and these are all rules that we need to follow. In the beginning, if they say these things, it will scare the people away. But once the chanting comes in and the purification takes place, suddenly they can accept so much. So for us, we don't see it as a big thing. We come into the temple room, we see the deities, and we pay our obeisances. But for somebody else, they'd be like, "Wow, these guys are crazy. You know, that's just a statue. You know, can't they see it's just a statue? You know, are these guys crazy?" But once they've been purified from chanting, then they're like, "Oh, wow," and then they're bowing down as well. You know, so we shouldn't be premature with Krishna consciousness. We should let people take very small steps, and when they're ready, then we can start to reveal these things, you know.
Not kind of thoughts that they had, but different kind of thought process. So then that's kind of debate. Why did you follow and why you did not follow? Because people try to teach to them. I believe what you know, it's like it's a like it's take the wrong method. You need to be careful when you're talking to somebody.
Well, generally for neophyte devotees, they're not convinced themselves, and they're very intense about trying to convince other people because they're not really convinced themselves. So the neophyte Kanishta devotees, they tend to be a little bit fanatical about everything, a little bit niyamagraha. They're like, follow the rules and regulations so strictly, and then the next minute they don't follow them at all because they don't really understand. So for ourselves, we have to, first of all, become elevated and purified in our own consciousness, so that even though we're not directly saying anything, just by our presence, people start thinking of going vegetarian, start thinking of reading Bhagavad Gita, and start thinking about God and their relationship with Him, even though we're not directly saying anything. But just by, like saying here in the purport, the devotee was so effulgent that his face was glowing with his Krishna consciousness. So that's the nature of Krishna, because he's the source of all light and he's luminous. When someone's Krishna conscious, they become very bright-faced. And then if you have friends, eventually they'll say to you, well, what is it anyway? How come you're so happy all the time and you're so positive and you seem really healthy? What is it? And then you can say, once you get the question, you can give the answer. So sometimes you have to be a little bit patient. It was like that with my family when I first became a Hare Krishna. I mean, they didn't even believe in God, And my dad was saying, how can you believe in a God called Hari? Because he thought it was like Harold Krishna, Hare Krishna. So it was just so far removed. But then as the years go on, they start seeing, well, you look very healthy, you look very happy. What is it all about anyway, So you have to be a little bit patient. And you have to become the embodiment of what it is that you're trying to preach. You have to show them that Krishna consciousness, spiritual life is totally blissful. It does free you from all fears. It does help you to give up your resentment to other things and attachment to other things. And you do become very carefree and very joyful, like a child. You become like a child, innocent like a child. And then as all these qualities start to radiate through you, then they think, this guy's got something. I don't know what it is, but I want it as well. So that takes time. ISKCON Guru Vrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi. Haribol. All of you.